by introducing myself. My name's Charlie. I'm a M4. I'm the president of the Radiology Interest Group here at Creighton, about to send my application in. I was really drawn to radiology because, as you'll come to see, they're always in the huddle. They interact with so many different specialties and patient populations, and I think it's really cool that they're so involved. They kind of underlie all aspects of patient care in medicine, and that's something that really appealed to me. Um, but welcome to our meeting. We're really happy to have you all. We've got a PowerPoint for you. We've got 29 people here. Awesome. I can share my screen if that's easiest, and then I can work the slides for you guys. Um,
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and just, actually, why don't we each go around and introduce ourselves first that we'll be speaking. I'll go ahead and go first. So I'm Dr. Tammy Donater, and I'm a musculoskeletal radiologist. And unlike Charlie, what he just said, Charlie said he was interested in radiology from day one. And I think he reached out to me as a first year, really about this time, early in September. So I definitely know that's true. But unlike Charlie, I did not know I was wanting to go into radiology till very late. So I just want to let everyone know, if you don't find what your passion is for a while, that's okay. Eventually you find it. So it's good just to explore. So I'll let Dr. Peterson go next.
Yeah, my name's Eric Peterson. I am a neuroradiologist, and I also discovered that radiology was my thing later on toward the end of my third year of medical school. And there's a variety of reasons for that. But I think just having a mindset where you're open to entertaining a specialty like radiology, I think is really important, no matter what you go into, because radiology um, will certainly be a part of pretty much everybody's practice, whether you're a radiologist or whether you're not. So it's good to understand what we do.
All right, I'm Chris Cox. I'm a thoracic radiologist, chair of radiology. And I guess in terms of sharing kind of how we got into the field, I kind of always found that I had this path that was just the path I was supposed to travel. And I would constantly be trying to get off that path and try, I'd like to see, oh, that's a shiny new thing. And I'd kind of go that way, and then I'd go this way. But so I meandered. So initially I thought maybe I'd like radiology, but then I didn't know, and then I did know, and then I didn't know. And I think that's kind of the beauty of the medical profession, is that you've got a lot of time, and your career can develop over time. So you may find it early, you may find it late, but usually you do find the place where you're supposed to be. So yeah. Who else is here?
Schubert, Johanna Schubert. I'm the Radiology Residency Program Director. Nice to have you guys all on board. I actually could not wait to finally start my clinical rotations when I was in medical school. I did not go to medical school to work at a cellular level. So once my clinical rotation started, my first rotation was actually radiology. And I fell in love with IR because I felt like they were the MacGyvers of the hospital. Like I just felt like when everything fell apart, and the IR guy came about and he fixed it. And so I wanted to be an interventionist, but I married one, so I ended up turning out into a pediatric radiologist, and I practice general radiology. All right, back to you.
Carissa, you're muted.
Sorry, I logged in a little late. I was actually just using my new laptop, so I had to download it and all that fun stuff. So, hi everyone, my name's Carissa Wiesler. I'm actually pretty new to the practice here, and I just finished a lot of my training, but I guess the question was probably how I got into radiology. And I was kind of a late bloomer into radiology. So in medical school, well, prior to medical school, I used to be a cardiac ultrasound tech. So I've always been really partial to like cardiac cardiology. So I thought I wanted to go into, I thought I wanted to be a cardiologist. but I didn't think that I could go through 3 years of internal medicine. And then I found out about radiology and all the cardiac imaging that we can perform as radiologists now. And I decided that I didn't want to have to go through 3 years of internal medicine, followed by another 3 years of fellowship. And I'm so happy I'm in radiology right now. I do a lot of chest and cardiac imaging, and I love it. So.
Do we have any IR representation here right now? Is Dr. Guinan here?
I don't think he's here right now, so we'll maybe skip over Dr. Guinan and you can share your PowerPoint and we'll just kind of go question by question.
Yeah, sure thing. Okay, share screen.
Okay, got it.
Okay, we good? Everybody can see?
Perfect. Yep, we can.
Cool. Okay, so some of this introductory stuff we've already covered. Welcome to our meeting. We've done the introductions. Here is Dr. Cox, our chair, and other faculty members that most of whom have introduced themselves. I'll distribute these slides afterwards to the group so you have everyone's contact information. Other faculty members who didn't get to introduce themselves are Dr. Crable, he is our body head. Dr. Davey does women's imaging. Dr. Cruz, molecular medicine. And Dr. Guinan, he is one of our interventional attendings. And then just before we really get started, I just want to put out there that our core faculty here is really passionate about teaching. They're all really good to our medical students, and they'd love to welcome anyone into the department. Feel free to reach out to any of them if you want to learn more about radiology. And like I said, I'll get these slides out to you. So if you want to reach out, you're able to. So to start, who is going to be talking about why radiology?
I think that's mine, right, Tammy?
That is yours, Eric. No one
Okay,
better.
all right. So here we go. There's a bunch of stuff on the slide. I'm going to cover most of it, but I kind of also put some thoughts together. I think so. There's a couple main reasons why radiology is the best specialty in medicine, and anybody who asks me, I will tell you that because in my heart of hearts, I really honestly believe it. That does not mean that it's always fun and a walk in the park and easy and great. And in fact, the first reason that radiology is the best specialty in medicine, I think, is because it's challenging and it's meaningful. Um, so every day as a radiologist, you will encounter things that puzzle you, that you don't understand, and that you have to use your knowledge and training of your subspecialty area or all of medicine in order to figure out, in order to be helpful to the patient and to the people taking care of the patient. And so I see interesting stuff every day. I learn things every single day. I've been out of fellowship for 20 years now, and I still feel like I learn something new every single day, and that keeps it fresh. So like most things in medicine, in radiology, you are signing yourself up for lifelong learning and improvement. It's really hard to coast in radiology because things change fast because of it's a technically driven specialty. And so you really have to embrace an attitude of lifelong learning. Um, you have to know that your decisions that you make, in the course of looking at studies and generating a report and talking to clinicians, those decisions you make impact the lives of patients every single day. And as a radiologist, particularly in a high volume practice, you are touching a lot of patients' lives in the course of a day. And what you decide will absolutely alter the care that those patients are getting. So it's a huge responsibility. But imaging is woven into the fabric of all aspects of medicine. And every year that goes by, it is more deeply woven into that. And even just over my short 20-year career, I've seen the role of radiology do nothing but grow in all clinical pathways. and in my own specialty, neuroradiology. So it's challenging and it's meaningful. Number two, you're a consultant. I like being a consultant. I find that rewarding. You get to help patients for the most part, and I'm talking about, but there's a little, it's a little bit different whether you're an interventional radiologist or a diagnostic radiologist, or you do a little bit of both. But you get to help patients by helping the people that are taking care of them primarily. And so it's a little bit more of an indirect way of patient care. Although IR folks, and there's other branches of diagnostic radiology, women's imaging in particular, where you have a lot more patient interaction, you have a lot more direct contact with the patient. Um, and one of the things I find rewarding because you're a consultant is you develop these collaborative relationships with clinical people. So in my world, in the neuro world, like I develop relationships with neurologists and neurosurgeons and emergency room physicians that rely on me not only to do the primary interpretation of the imaging studies they order, but when there's something that's puzzling them, right? When it's really on the line in terms of like, what are we going to do to take care of this patient? They come to me and ask me really hard questions about stuff, and that's super rewarding. And the collaborative part of my job is what I really love. Flexibility, right? Like radiology is choose your own adventure. For the older people in the room, you will probably had books when you were growing up that were called Choose Your Own Adventure. And for those of you that have never experienced those books, like you could be like, you read the first 5 pages and then you get to start choosing how the story goes. So you get to say, well, I'm going to walk into that cave. And it says, if you choose to walk into the cave, go to page 99, right? And then the story could end really quick because it could be like, oh, you were eaten by a bear. So you go back and be like, okay, I'm not going to go into that cave. We'll follow the river instead, right? So it is a choose your own adventure. Radiology is an incredibly flexible specialty. Um, and that depends somewhat on your subspecialty within radiology, right? So you can choose to be kind of a hyper subspecialist, and that's kind of like that. Like I am a neuroradiologist, that's all I do. If I have to look at a knee MRI, I am totally lost. At one point, I knew how to do it, but now I wouldn't know which end is up. So I'm a neurorad, and that's what I do, and that is my area of expertise. There are radiologists in this group that are much more well-rounded than I am, that can do a little bit of everything. So you can choose to be a radiologist, and you can choose to hyper focus on one area, or you can choose to do a little bit of everything. You can choose to be a proceduralist by doing a dedicated IR training, or doing an IR fellowship. Um, or you can choose to do just diagnostics, and you never have to touch a patient if you don't want to. And then in real life, there's usually some kind of balance between that, depending on the subspecialty. There are procedures that go along with your diagnostic specialty that you are trained in to do during your residency and fellowship. And that, depending on your practice, you spend more time interacting directly with patients during these procedures and not. So it's not a binary decision. You're either interventional and you see patients all the time, or you're diagnostic and you never see patients, because that varies hugely in practice. Um, you can choose to work with learners, right? Whether you choose a traditional academic path, or whether you choose a traditional private practice path where you're not working with learners, or whether you have some kind of in radiology right now, there are more and more kind of hybrid environments where people in private practice are working with various levels of learners, from students to residents to fellows. And so I did not start off working with students or residents, but I spend a lot of my time doing that now, and I derive a lot of my job satisfaction from interacting with you guys when you all cram into my reading room and I ask you questions about neuroradiology that you couldn't possibly know, or God forbid, music that a lot of you know even less about. Um, but we have fun with that, and I get a lot of joy out of that. So So you can choose that. You can choose your work hours, right? So I work 5 days a week and I take call, which means I work on the weekend and work in the evenings. But even within our group, there are folks who just work 3 days a week and they don't do nights and they don't do weekends. There are people who work 4 days a week, don't do nights and weekends. Um, there are jobs out there where if you want to just work in the deep hours of the night, being full time for being like a overnight radiologist is basically the standard is you work 1 week and then you have 2 weeks off. You can be a radiologist in the evening, where the kind of work standard for that is you work 1 week on and you work 1 week off. So the job that you choose varies by your subspecialty, it varies by your practice. And the cool thing about radiology is you can modify that over time to fit what you want in your life. You can choose your geographic location now, ever since COVID, basically the rise of remote radiologists has gotten pretty huge. And one of the things they've kind of discovered is that there's some people who really like just remote jobs. They never interact with anybody else in person. They sit in their basement and read scans, and they're happy as clams. There are other people that could never do that. They want to be in the hospital. They want to be around other people, see people in person. But what they found is the people with the highest level of job satisfaction are people who kind of live in a hybrid environment where they have some time in person and some time remote. And so a lot of practices are kind of trying to work that in to their workflow. So you can say we had a resident graduate last year who wanted to live in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. But there wasn't a job in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. So he moved to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and he works remotely for a practice in Illinois. And he works a week on and a week off. And that's the gig. So there are innumerable permutations of how you can do this job. And you got to find one that works for your life. And pretty much there is a job out there, no matter what kind of craziness you want to participate in. And obviously the benefits and the pay will fluctuate depending. But you can mold a job in radiology to your life. You get to play with cool toys. There's a lot of tech involved. If you're a nerd like me, you get to play with fun equipment and you get to use computers all day. And you get to use that technology to really help people. And that's a lot of fun. And then lastly, the lifestyle, I'll just touch on really quickly and then I'll hand it off to somebody else. But historically and up to this point, as you probably heard, radiology is a fairly lucrative specialty, right? We are well paid for what we do. We have fairly regular hours. You can ask any of my kids. I was home for dinner pretty much every night, unless I was working on an evening shift or something like that. So, is it completely normal? No, it's not. There is no job in medicine where you have a completely normal life, but radiology will get you as close as any specialty will. Um, we get lots of time off. Radiologists probably, as a standard, have more vacation than any other medical specialty. And that's because largely what we're doing is shift work. And so, what are the specifics of that? Well, it can be anywhere from 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks on the low end, up to 22 weeks on the high end. And so it just depends on what practice you join. But there's always plenty of time off for vacation. So, and when you come back from vacation, there's typically not a stack of stuff waiting for you, right? Like I have friends that are in clinical medicine and they say, oh, every time I go on vacation, it's a nightmare when I come back because I've got charts and calls and whatever else. That doesn't really exist in radiology for the most part. At least in our practice, you come back from vacation and you basically start from the ground floor again. I'm going to stop talking and let somebody else talk. But those reasons are why radiology is the best specialty in medicine.
Thanks, Dr. Peterson. I am sold.
I already knew that about you, Charles.
So I think what kind of people really enjoy radiology? I think, Krista, do you want to take this one?
Um,
Chris, you got this one?
yeah, sure.
Okay, sorry.
Although it's a trap, it's because I've done this a couple of years, and anytime you say, "Well, this is the kind of person that would like radiology," everybody comes in and says that they were nothing like that, and that they love radiology. And I think that's just goes to the fact that there's so many permutations of how the job can work that it really does. It's attractive to a lot of different types of people. At the same time, what are some perhaps common traits? And I would say that, especially on the diagnostic side, that you've got to be able to take in a fair amount of information, process it, and make a decision, right? So I would say that's probably the common trait. And then all the other aspects of it are just things within it that you find particularly interesting. I think also with that, because you're making a lot of decisions, you're also seeing a lot of clinical scenarios in a day. And I always found that very interesting. Like I liked that I could touch on like 50, patients in a day, or 100 patients, or whatever it is, right? To be a part of their care as well as the problem solving for them. Things that I personally enjoyed about it that maybe you wouldn't find in other fields, of course, is the technology. I like the fact that our field is always evolving. I think that it will be that evolution will kick into hyperdrive here, probably over the next 5 to 10 years, probably 5 years and maybe less. But I think that we're also the type of people that can adapt well to that. That's always been the story of radiology, is that we've adapted over time. I personally enjoyed the physics of radiology. I found it interesting. I always wanted to know how everything works. So the fact of understanding like radiation and nuclear decay and how an MRI works and ultrasound, like I found that interesting unto itself. But maybe not everybody feels that way about it. Yeah, and I think the fact that it is kind of being shift work, I think that also attracts certain kinds of people. I think, some people want to be the physician for the person 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's wonderful. That's like, thank goodness we have people that do that. At the same time, I like having kind of a bolus of work, thinking a lot, and then having a little downtime. Also, being the doctor's doctor. People think of us as like sitting by ourselves, but actually we've got a lot of interaction. And I like that the interaction is kind of very high level, intellectual processing. I enjoy sitting in a conference and having 5 or 6, physicians around kind of shooting their questions and issues to you as you're processing the information and helping them come to conclusions. So I always found all that especially enjoyable about the job, frankly. And what else? Anything in terms of what other people, why they were? I think visually, 3D anatomy, that whole piece of it, I found super interesting. I liked to play with things visually in my head and move them around spatially. So I thought that was a fun aspect of it. to the IR side of it, you know, as much as you want to do with patients, you can do with patients. And I know that, like Dr. Schubert said, being the MacGyver, like I can't tell you how many times over the course of my career where we've come across patients that have an issue and it's like, what do you even do in this situation? And the solution is often the interventional radiologist. You know, like something gets lost in the patient or, you know, whatever it is, like it's the interventional radiologist is like this amazing problem solver for the patient. So I think that that's really a fun part of the job as well. Anything that anybody else would add in terms of what kind of people would enjoy radiology?
I would just like to echo two of the main things that you already touched on is one, being able to make a decision. I think I'm a person that didn't realize how I like to make a decision and I move on. And you absolutely have to be a person that can make a decision and actually be okay with uncertainty. And just come up with, you know, how should you manage this? Every day I still see something I've never seen before, and, you know, no textbooks is going to give me the answer, but I need to say, well, you know, should we follow it up? Should I get another imaging modality or another set of imaging modalities that can, is there any other imaging modality that can help me figure this out? So you just have to figure it out and move on, and then know that that's definitely part of our practice. And also I'd say I'm extremely visual. I remember whenever I was learning, I always wanted to see the picture on the page when I was reading about it, and I'd get frustrated if I had to read all these words and there was no picture. And now, even today, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love to see a picture, and it's really what tells me the story. So those are the two things that I think are very true to radiology.
Okay, then there's the other side. Who's gonna take this one?
Love it.
Well, this
So
is a
we
super one.
do good cop, bad cop with Peterson. So I really had to like hold my mouth shut all this time. So as the program director, you know, it's my job to talk you out of radiology, which I think is double funny. But so I just made a few notes as you guys were speaking to state the opposite. So radiology really changed over the years. When I wanted to become a radiologist, the radiologists were invited into the morning rounds, and everyone was like talking about the case and completely puzzled. And the radiologist would show up and throw the images up, you know, on the light board, and that was the answer. And so I felt like we were the holder of the key, and I wanted to be that person. And it really doesn't work that way anymore. We became the physical exam by CT. So patients come into the emergency room and they do not get an evaluation. They go from the front desk to the CT scanner. And the only information I have is pain. And so I'm not respected. Then I need to make a diagnosis based on imaging only without having access to the labs just yet. Without knowing what is happening with the patient. I have to make a decision incredibly fast. It usually takes about 5 minutes for us to take a CT scan nowadays because there are just so many on the list. And after that, my report goes out and I never get a feedback. No clinician is standing behind me to say that you did a good job or ask me a follow-up question. And sometimes I learn it through M&M that they acted on something that I said because they didn't know what was happening with the patient either. You know, so it's stressful and not as rewarding as it used to be. We became incredibly overwhelmed because they are ordering just so many studies. You know, there is no physical exam first to make a judgment on what needs to be ordered and, you know, what is actually like the right pathway for this patient to figure out what's happening with them. They just go straight to CT. Why Dr. Peterson pointed out that there are some areas in radiology where there is some patient interaction. In most areas, there absolutely isn't. And so in IR, there is. In mammo, you see patients. And then depending on your work situation, sometimes MSK radiologists would do procedures. Sometimes the body people would do some procedures. But otherwise, you're sitting by yourself in a dark room the whole day. And I'm actually grateful when I'm scheduled to work at Bergen because I have medical students and residents walk into my room, so I'm not completely by myself the whole day. So having no interaction and having to sit in a dark space for 9 hours is tough. It's especially tough during the winter time. So I would drive to the hospital in the dark. I sit in the dark for 9 hours, then I go home in the dark. So for me, physical exercise in the morning is everything. Otherwise, I would go nuts. So that's for lifestyle. It's not all that cheerful. Almost all of us have repetitive stress injuries, and this is so ridiculous. Like when I had attendings who would scroll the mouse like this, not with their finger, I would make fun of them. And then now I'm the one who has to do that because everything hurts. And we had a survey go out recently in the department, and most people complained. So 5 to 10 years doing the same repetitive micro movements will eventually get to you. And then because there is no patient interaction and not very many procedures for diagnostic radiologists, and we are, if you think about it, a beautiful setup for AI, because digital data is coming in, there is some processing and digital data going out. It's not all that complicated to automate, so it's a danger that is lingering out there. That is all I have for negatives.
I'll add something else to this as well. So like Dr. Schubert mentioned, no one's telling you great job, no one's cheering you on, no one's saying even thank you to the radiologist. Lots of patients, know their OB-GYN, they know their pediatrician, and, they thank them. And we're kind of the unsung heroes. And if you're okay being the unsung hero, then radiology is for you. I'm totally okay with not having a cheerleader and just kind of knowing internally that I saved someone's lives or made a contribution to their care. I will say I've now been in practice 18 years, and I finally got a thank you from my patient. I found a early lung cancer on a preoperative shoulder CT. And I made sure I called the doctor and I said, yeah, this really needs to be worked up for cancer. And I finally, when the patient was treated for cancer and then came back to get her shoulder replacement, and she told the doctor, the orthopedic surgeon, please make sure you tell the radiologist thank you. And it was my first thank you 6 months ago. So I'm pretty excited about that one. But anyway, I know I've helped other patients. So if you can be the unsung hero, then radiology is for you.
I would just like to add too, there was a little bullet point about competition between other specialties and reading specific imaging. That does exist, as a lot of imaging nowadays, like CTs, are more commonly ordered and pretty much used as a physical exam finding now, like Dr. Schubert had mentioned. There is, some turf wars occasionally, or some competition with other subspecialties and who gets to read some of the actual imaging. So for example, I do a lot of cardiac imaging, and we do split, reading cardiac CTs and cardiac MRI with cardiology. And that also differs between where you're working from center to center. Like in our practice, we have that kind of 50-50 split. Versus other practices. Radiology will just be taking care of reading that specific type of imaging, versus other centers, it'll be the cardiologists or the orthopedic doctors. Or so I just wanted to comment on that as well. And I think that even might increase with AI in the future, and just the amount of imaging that's being ordered by all these subspecialists as well. So.
And then next we have residency and lifestyle of the resident. Who's got that one?
I think Dr. Schubert, can you take that one? Your microphone.
So while I think it was you, Tammy, who said that you wouldn't do internal medicine for 3 years. But like radiology is not much different because for radiology, you have to do 1 year of preliminary year and then 4 years of radiology. And on top of that, 1 year of fellowship. So that's 6 years of training. If you do IM, that's 3 years plus 3 years of fellowship. If you do surgery, that's 5 years of surgery, 1 year of fellowship. So no matter what you do, you're going to be in training for 6 years, plus minus. So yeah, so for you to do radiology, you're going to have to apply first for a prelim year. That can be medicine, surgery, transitional year. And then you can be a dropout from other specialties like pediatrics, and that will be accepted. After that, you finish 4 years of radiology training. In third year, you take your boards. And then after graduation, a year and a half out, you're going to take your final certifying exam during fellowship or actually already in practice. There are some programs that offer the first year built into the whole radiology residency, so you would not have to apply for 2 separate programs. And then there are programs that offer ESIR, where you get an increased number of interventional radiology rotations throughout your DR residency. And at the end of residency, if you wish, you could do an extra year of IR on top of that, and you're going to be dual certified both in diagnostic and interventional radiology. But if you would decide not to go that route, then you would just become a diagnostic radiologist at the end. And then, yeah, there are multiple subspecialties in radiology, as you can see in the bottom, like abdominal imaging, MSK, neuro, pediatric, breast. There are 8 subspecialties within radiology.
This slide is just a little more on IR. I don't know if Dr. Guinan or anyone has joined since we started.
Oh, I'm here.
Oh, welcome.
Is in the casa.
Yeah. So IR, I guess, did you guys give a little spiel about IR? Should I do that now?
We were waiting for you.
Oh,
We're waiting for you.
fantastic. I mean, IR, you guys have already heard, I mean, radiology and IR obviously intimately entwined now slightly. I mean, with the integrated pathway, you can technically be in an IR direct residency, but you're still going to be working alongside of your DR brethren, as I believe it should be. The reasons why I love IR, it's the little bit, it's like you have to be decisive, but if you're ever indecisive what you want to do in your life, IR is like beautiful because it's kind of the best of both worlds, I think. You get in most places, in most private practice settings at least, you're still reading, you're still keeping those skills up, and yet you still get to see patients, but not necessarily see them for the duration of their life. It's very problem oriented. So if you have a person come to you with, a renal cancer, you're going to see them in clinic, and then you're going to get to do the procedure, and then you're going to see them intermittently in follow-up and potentially do any touch-up procedures that need to be done. So you get to make some relationships with patients, and yet there's some patients that you're going to see once and then move on, which is nice. So we do a lot of bread and butter little procedures, your biopsies, your drains, your vascular accesses that are quick, maybe 20 to 30 minute procedures. And then you'll have a case that could be a, pelvic artery revascularization that might be 5 hours in a case. So you really do get to sprinkle a little bit of all the things that I liked and didn't want to say goodbye to forever after training. And that's why I chose what I'm doing. The pathway has changed a little bit. I'm not that old. I guess it's getting older and older every year, but 5 years out of training now, and there's been a big change since I got out. So classically, everyone did their 1 year of prelim and then 4 years of the DR residency, and you do a 1 year fellowship. That pathway is gone. I was the last class to graduate from that. Now you either go directly into a direct pathway IR residency, which basically will shake out to usually a prelim year of surgery and then 3 years of diagnostic, and then basically 2 years of focused IR training. That's not direct, but that's kind of what all the time shakes out to be. Or, like I think we just mentioned, there's also an ESIR, which is early specialization in interventional radiology. So within your residency program, you can opt into or apply to this ESIR. And after a couple of years of diagnostic, you'll be specialized into IR, so that certain programs offer that. And you kind of transition from being a DR resident to an IR resident, essentially. Or if you go to a place that doesn't offer IR, ESIR, or a direct IR residency, you can do your full training in diagnostic residency and then find what we call an independent residency, which is actually kind of a new fellowship. So those are the pathways. There's chaos in my house, so sorry.
Thanks, Dr. Guinan. Competitiveness of the specialty. Who
Yeah,
has
that's
got
me, that's Schubert. So once we turned into we used to interview only in person, and then after COVID, most of the interviews turned into Zoom interviews, and that just opened up the floodgates. And people apply to a lot more programs than they used to in the past. So now applicants apply to 60, 70 programs. With that, the toughest year we had was we received 850 applications. Last year, the average for a program was 719 applications. So there is a huge over application still going on. I think it's partially because it's just too easy to Zoom interview, and you don't have to put your money and time into showing up for an interview. The number of spots has increased over the years a little bit. Since 2017, there has been a 15% increase in the radiology residency spots in the country. So now there are 1,208 positions offered. That increase does not match the increase of our case volume. We wish we could have more, residents all over the country, but the government limited the number of residency slots that they are willing to sponsor, so it's tough to do that. Right after COVID, it seemed like everyone wanted to do radiology, and there were no unfilled positions in the match. Last year, actually, I'm going to go back to 2023, there were none. 24, there were 4 unfilled positions, and in 2025, there were 19 unfilled positions, which sounds like a huge increase, but it's still just 1.5% of all the positions offered. So that's still a very tough match to get in. With USMLE Step 1 gone, it's really hard to use USMLE Step 2 as a judge. It's not as good of a measure, honestly, as Step 1 used to be. I think that's a negative for you guys, because if you are brilliant, you have a hard time to show it off nowadays. So with Step 2, there is not such a huge range between the applicants as there used to be with Step 1, and it does not reflect as well on your board exam as Step 1 used to be, the radiology board exam. But just to give you an idea, if you get a 244 on your Step 2, you can get into family medicine. If you can score a 251, you can get into internal medicine. And if you score a 256, you can get into radiology. So it's still fairly competitive, and it requires some brains. I think that if you have a hard time with the USMLEs, you should just be judgmental with yourself a little bit, because the radiology boards is going to be much harder. There's lots of studying involved. The material is just endless, and you need to have the capacity to soak it in. Yeah, so they say that it's moderate to very competitive.
As a current applicant, one thing I noticed, like looking at programs and researching programs, is that pretty generally the application volume decreased last cycle. And I think part of that is people are a little wary of AI, and they're deterred from the specialty by AI's like sort of looming presence. And I'm interested to see how the data looks this cycle, if that continues or if that was like a one-off, just kind of low year for the specialty.
Yeah.
But
Also, the signaling helped a lot, because people realize that if you don't signal a program, your chances of getting an interview is fairly low. So with signaling showing up, I think it's kind of like leveling it out a little bit, because programs were incredibly overwhelmed by the number of applications. So people just apply to like less number of programs as well.
Awesome.
I
And
also
just a
think
quick
that
comment
number of
about
12 publications is a little high.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, and for the people who are applying, I don't think you need to shoot for that. Like, I think if you're meeting the marks in other areas and you're going to get to the interview, like if you have 4, 5 solid, scholarly activities that you can speak to and say intelligent things about, and how you contributed to them and that they were meaningful, that's going to be way better than, I mean, when you're looking at their CV, once you get past about 4 or 5, you can't process all these people's activities. So
Agreed.
I would just caution, don't be worried about that number being 12.
I
That
think it's
number also
pretty
includes
inflated.
40 medical graduates, who spend a couple of years in the US doing nothing but just like writing papers for a program to be able to get into a residency. So that will average it out and make it much higher, look much higher.
All right, moving on. Women in radiology. Dr. Donato, were you going to take this one?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So really, what I have to say about radiology is that anyone that really has a focus on prioritizes work-life balance, then radiology is for you. I think that's really true for women a lot of times, because I think we still kind of head the household, and hopefully that's okay for me to say. I love radiology because of the work-life balance. I love to go to work, and I love to work really, really hard. And when I'm done with work, I like to leave work at work and come home and take care of my 4 kids and make sure they're get every place they need to be. And likewise, when I'm at work, my kids know that I'm at work and I'm working really hard, and they should not bother me unless it's an emergency. So to me, one of the best reasons to go into radiology is because it has a great work-life balance. And then, as Dr. Peterson talked about, just the flexibility to be able to mold your practice, your career into what fits with you and your family is invaluable to me. I think I've had the pleasure of being able to change how much I work throughout my time in practice, and that's been very valuable to me. And I just think those are things that a lot of times as a medical student you might not really appreciate the importance of, but really when you are out of practice and you have different demands placed on you, and you need to worry about an entire family and not just yourself, then those are things that have saved me and have been wonderful for my marriage and wonderful for me being a mother, and just playing into the role I fit really within my community as well. So that's why I think it's a tremendous field for me, and I think it's great for any woman, and I definitely feel it's equally as good for any man that loves to prioritize work-life balance and flexibility. Just a little bit on numbers for women. Radiology historically has less women than men going into the field. However, that is improving. Back in like the 1970s, only 5% of women, 5% of radiologists were women. A couple years ago, I wrote down these numbers. In 2022, we went up to 30%, and last year we're up to 37%. So I think that's great for the field of radiology. I feel very valued within my practice. I think that's really important. I think it's a great field to work in with my colleagues as well. Feel very appreciative of that. And I guess I will say that still in the US, we're a little bit less than, we have only about 27% of women in practice right now that are radiologists, compared to globally, there's 38%. So the US is a little behind the rest of the world in bringing women into the field, but that's why I'm trying so hard to get more women into the field, because I think it's a perfect field for us. So that's my input.
All I would like to add that if you do not like physics or care for computers, you can still manage. You're gonna be all right. And I'm originally from Hungary, and almost all radiologists were women in Hungary. It was the women's job. So I was really surprised to see that when I came to the US, that it's the other ways around.
Okay, usually at this time we get a question about AI. I know in the past, Dr. Peterson has answered this one on do we have concerns about AI taking over radiology? So, Eric, do you want to say a couple things?
Yeah, I think this is a big issue. I mean, obviously a lot of people talk about this. But here's the way I view this, right? So I've been out of my fellowship for 20 years, and the story of radiology is changed through technical advancement. And again, the way I personally think about AI, first of all, thinking AI, the way AI is going to change us as humans, um, that it will somehow be isolated or more profound in one branch of medicine, i.e., radiology, is completely naive. Much bigger than that. But within radiology, here's how technological advancement in radiology works. So when I was a first year radiology resident, um, PACS was first coming into wide adoption. Now, for those of you that don't know, PACS is the computer system that displays and archives the images. And so back in the day, we would read off of film, right? And I'm sure you've seen pictures of this, people doing this, right? So a third of a radiologist's day, right? A third of your job of what you spent your time doing while you were at work was digging around in jackets, hanging up films, trying to find the prior studies if there were any, sifting through the jackets after the surgeons had put the CT back in the MR, folder and everything like that. And so you spent a lot of time, literally a third of your time during the day, just doing that, just doing film management, not dictating, not looking at pictures, anything. So the conclusion of the radiology community was, or the fear was, oh my God, PACS now, like there's none of that. Like the prior just comes up, and you don't have to hang any films, and they're all there, and you can scroll through them instead of looking through them one at a time. And the conclusion of the radiology community was, oh my gosh, we're going to need a lot fewer radiologists to do this job. Now that obviously did not happen, right? Radiologists became much more efficient because of that technological advancement. We were able to do more work in a day. But the other side of what happened is we were able to offer kinds of studies, and kinds of information that were simply not possible if you were trying to interpret these studies off of film. So what happened was actually is that the demand for radiologists actually went up after that, even though the fear was that we would need fewer radiologists. So that's technological revolution number one. Number two, actually, is a front-end voice recognition for generating reports. A significant part of my workday was, uh, you know, reading through a printed report that I had sent down to a room full of people wearing orthopedic shoes, typing up my reports after listening to me on a cassette tape that they would collect twice a day. The paper reports would come back up and they would put them on my desk, and I would stop what I was doing and I would look through the paper reports, and I would take a pen and cross out what was wrong and write in manually what I wanted fixed. And then somebody would come and take that stack of paper that I had written on with a pen back down to transcription. They would redo it so it was fixed. And then when it was fixed, that paper stack would come back to me, and I would take a pen and I would sign my name on it. And that would be the signed final report that would then go, and a unit secretary would take that report that I signed with a pen manually, and they would clip it into a paper chart. And that's where it was, right? And so, like, this process took a lot of person hours to do, both on the radiologist part and people from the radiologist part. None of that exists anymore, right? I mean, now the computer talks. You guys that have sat with me that are more seniors, and those that are maybe younger in your medical student career You will come and sit with a radiologist sometime and you will watch how fast we talk to the computer and how accurately the computer types every word we say. It's miraculous. And it saves us a ton of time. But we didn't, every time we think, oh, these technological advancements are going to make us more efficient and therefore there will be less of a need for us, it's never happened. I've never seen it. I've never even seen it a little bit. Every technological advancement offers, basically makes us more powerful and more needed. And my personal view is that AI, is it going to change what we spend our minutes and hours doing during our workday? Absolutely. It will be revolutionary. Will it obviate the need for us? Absolutely not. In fact, I think it will make us only more needed and more important. And that's the history of technological advancement within radiology. We adapt and we learn and we become more powerful.
I couldn't agree more. Any technological advancement we've had, I've welcomed and I'm excited, and we need to get more AI in to our current practice. It makes us more efficient. It takes out the tedious things that Eric just alluded to that annoy us, and it just makes us more productive and allows us to be more intellectual and focus on the things that why we have high level of training.
All I have to add that, Eric, you forgot the floppy disk.
Oh, yes. It was revolutionary at the time, Johanna.
You did show your age a little bit on that, Eric.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I look at myself on this Zoom and I can see the light shining off my head. Believe me, every time I look in the mirror, I feel like I show my age.
Okay, we only have a few minutes left.
All right, we'll go to the next slide. What do we got? Okay, how to get involved. M4 advice. Yeah, real quick, when I send these slides out, I'll make sure to put in the contact information for all the RIG officers, Radiology Interest Group officers. We will all be available and happy to answer any questions you might have. Also, the faculty here are super welcoming and passionate about teaching. They're always happy to have you and to show you things and explain things to you. We've got a link talking about applying for radiology residency, which for most of you, I understand there's a lot of M1s here. This is far in advance, but just stay up to date with things. And I think that's our last slide, honestly. Oh, upcoming events. Uh, M3s, we'll assign mentors to the M3s. If we'll send out an email, get that sorted out. We'll find out, who's going to be applying. I know you're still working through that process. We'll have an ultrasound workshop at some point this year. It'll probably be in the late fall or winter. More on that to come. And then for the M3s who do decide to apply radiology, there'll be a sort of post-match meeting where the M4s who matched will talk about their experience applying and their interview experiences, and have another meeting more tailored just to that. And in the meantime, again, I'll put out the contact info. If you have any questions, please don't be shy. Yeah, that's my last slide. Faculty, thank you so much for your time tonight. This meeting every year is so informative and so helpful. Reminds me of, this meeting got me first interested when I was in M1. And then to the students, thank you all for coming. Thank you for your attention. I really hope you learned something. I hope you have a new appreciation for the specialty and how wonderful it is. And have a good night.